I can see myself. Okay, well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. We've been looking forward to this webinar for quite some time. My name is Robin, and I'm from Saskatchewan Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, and I work with early childhood and family services. Before we begin our webinar tonight, I just wanted to do a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge that we stand on the land of Canada, from west all the way to the east, from the north and to the south, all across Canada. We honor the diversity of the Indigenous people and their contributions, including the resources, the materials, the trees, the water, and so much more. Let's also remember that we have the opportunity to reaffirm our relationships with one another as we move together with respect and commitment to move forward together. Again, we thank you and we acknowledge the land that we stand on today in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and in Ontario, as well as all the other provinces and territories across Canada. Thank you. Tonight's webinar is hosted in collaboration with the Deaf Children's Society of British Columbia, with Saskatchewan Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services here in Saskatchewan, and also in Ontario with Silent Voice. We've collaborated together. We wanted to continue to educate parents that have deaf and hard of hearing children, and we want to welcome professionals into our webinar as well tonight. So if you have any questions or comments about future webinar ideas, specific issues or topics that capture your attention, please, if you're interested, please share with us, and then we can continue to improve our support for you so that you have the supports you need. Just a few things that you need to know before we begin our presentation with Michelle tonight. So this is recorded. And Michelle's PowerPoint, we'll see if that one is going to be downloaded as well. And we want you to know that this is a safe place. We want you to be able to get into that, that web page. We'll have a link for that as well. It'll be posted on YouTube and also on that web page. It'll be there as well. We also want to remind people that this is a safe place for parents. We want them to feel comfortable. We want them to be ask questions that they have, and for them to be able to get the information that they need. We want them to feel comfortable and safe. And the professionals that are joining us tonight, we welcome you, and please just enjoy the presentation. Next, we will have Michelle Chung to introduce, and she will give her presentation, and then we'll have some questions and answer. And then when that's all done, we will wrap things up. All right. So are we ready? We are ready to meet Michelle. Let's please welcome Michelle Chung. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Okay, just a minute here. Everything keeps changing on me. All right. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here to talk about help me. My deaf and hard of hearing child will be starting school soon. What do I need to do? So I have some different pointers and some tips, ideas on how you can transition your child into school. So I'm going to now share my slide presentation. All right, can people see that all right? Just hold on. I want to make sure I can see the chat. Okay, I have it all set up. I have it over to my right so that if you have a comment, type it into the chat and I will try and look at that, or if it's a thumbs up, or that way I can get some feedback from the audience, and I have it on the right of my screen, so I'll be able to monitor that as well. So I will proceed. I'll introduce myself. My name is Michelle Chung, and my sign name is that M tapping on my chest. I'll give you a little brief introduction of who I am. I'm currently working as a grade 1 elementary school teacher at the School for the Deaf here in Ontario. And I am specifically working in Milton. This is my second year teaching grade 1, and it's been quite the experience. My previous job that I was working at before, I was working as an IHP, infant ASL consultant for infant hearing program with silent voice, and I was working with families who have had a deaf or hard of hearing child from ages 0 to 6, and I did that for 5 years. So in total, I have 7 years working with children, I would say under the ages of 7, so 0 to 7. There's my educational background. You might just think, well, my education is ECE and all that, but initially I studied applied math. I'm a numbers person. I love numbers. But then I realized I wanted to teach deaf children, and then I took my master's in bilingual education and became a teacher. And that is what I'm doing currently. And I'm happy to be here talking about transitioning into school. If you think of a question that you want to ask, type it in the chat. Or if you want to hold on to it, you can bring it up at the question answer period. If you're wanting to be spotlit, I believe you can hit that reaction button and put your hand up. And then our Zoom host will be able to pin you, spotlight you, and then you can sign your question. That is also an option. So the agenda that I want to cover tonight is, what does access to language actually mean? Placement options, school tours, tips for getting ready for school, and the last part of the agenda is the question and answers. I'm hoping I can run through my slide presentation and leave enough time for question and answers. That is my goal, and I will be trying my best to get through all of the other topic information on my agenda. So what does it mean to have access to language? So for you who are participating, if you want to just type in what your answer would be, I'm going to give you maybe 30 seconds or so to answer that question. What does it mean to have access to language? So what does it look like when a child does have access? What does it look like when a child does not have access? So if you can type in a few of your comments, that would be great. Or if you want to actually sign your comment, you can. We can spotlight you. Okay, other comments? Just type something in. There's no wrong answer. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, to have access means that the person can be fully involved with their peers and feel included. Having access means that they're able to communicate their wants and needs. At an early age, they're exposed to full accessible communication. They can develop and acquire language naturally. And then another comment is feelings and emotions. I'm going to count at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No more? Okay. I agree with all of those comments that were made. I'm going to put up my favorite slide. This one here. I want you to really tell me, okay, which is it that you see on the screen and where it is in relation to me? So you see the brain in this picture. So language is not just listening and speaking, it's so much more. It includes all of these other features, like, with a child who has language, they can think, they can disagree, they can have a reaction, they have an opinion that they can share. They can analyze, they can be very critical of what they're seeing, they can do some problem solving, they can tease, they can joke, they can do that with other children or peers or adults. They can do future planning. They can say, well, tomorrow I'm going to do this, this, and then that. They can compare different things, decide what's best for them, like what's their number one choice, what's their number two choice. But there's so many different components that require language. If you have no language, how do you have that critical thinking within the brain? I will now show you a different, and I'll back up a bit. This is from Language First. I love their materials and resources that they have for parents and professionals. I encourage you to check that out if you have time to look up Language First. This is another slide from Language First. When we talk about just taking information in just through your ears, that's not the only thing. You can take things in visually, not just auditorily, but then you can also take in information tactily. There's some deaf and hard of hearing people that might have a vision loss, reduced vision, or blind. They will take information through their fingers. They can write English, they could sign, they could probably speak. There's a lot of different things that they can do, but the routes to get information to the brain come through 3 different avenues, through an auditory avenue, a visual avenue, and tactile avenue. And I think it's important that we not limit it to only the auditory avenue, and also decrease that idea of, well, let's just try the auditory processing first and see what happens. I suggest that we do all 3. You expose a child to whatever it takes for them to acquire language, so they can hear music and they can feel different information, they can play, they can see. Provide them with everything, and then given time, you will see what that child, their preference is. Maybe some might like to learn tactily, and that's how that information goes into their brain. Some might prefer to do things visually using a signing format, but it really varies. But if they have all of the options, then they'll be able to figure out what works best for them. And they might be able to use all 3. They might have a preference in one of the 3. So it really does vary. And I think we have to get away from the one size fits all. And then we have this quote that says, it's up to the child, not anyone else, not the teacher, not the professional, not the family, not the friends, that decide. I mean, eventually it's what's best for the child and what they feel most comfortable in acquiring language and having access in language. And we need to support a child in their learning. And if there is an avenue that they excel at, let's try and give them that as much as possible, rather than limiting them to only one possible avenue of acquiring language. Okay. All right, so I've got a, did you know, you can see that graph where it peaks at the bottom of the graph, it refers to the age of the child, and the vertical part is the learning opportunity, and you can see that it peaks. So when, any guesses as to when it peaks? At what age does it peak for the learning of a language? 0 to what? What would be the peak of language acquisition, or the optimal language acquisition? Anybody want to put that in the chat? Just guesses. You know, you can guess 50, 100. Oh, somebody said 7. Okay, there's a guess of 5, okay? Okay, I'm going to count down 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So we had 7, 5, 4, 0 to 5. Okay. All right, so the critical period is from 0 to 6 years of age. And then you can see that it then goes down as the child gets older. So when we talk about optimal learning, where their brains are sponges, those are the windows of opportunity, or the critical learning period. It's a critical time to acquire a language. So it's not to say that a child can't learn language after the age of 6. That's not what I'm trying to imply. But the rate of learning will not be the same as it is from 0 to 6. A child has to work harder to try and retain that information, and they have to do that because the brain starts to solidify in terms of its elasticity. It's still able to learn. It's not that it's not able to learn, but it's not like when a child learns and their brain is so malleable and they're so open to learning. I'll show you a demo. All right, so here, if you can imagine, water is like the language. It's information, whatever you want that child to acquire. So here's the child. So I'll just go right here. So this is a new sponge. So we're looking at a young child, a new sponge. And I'll put it in the water. So it's absorbing all of this language. So it's actually pretty heavy. It's quite a weight difference. And when I squeeze the sponge, I mean, I can see there's a lot of language that's been absorbed. What happens, as the child gets older, when they get to be 6 or 7, like that sponge gets a little bit older. If you had an old sponge, it may not be as absorbing as it was when it was a brand new sponge. So if we're going to compare it, like a child from 0 to 6 is just so ready to learn all kinds of information. Oops, I've just got water everywhere. Excuse me. So I just wanted to do kind of a visual demonstration as to what, that brain, the 0 to 6 brain would be like in terms of absorbing information. So it's very critical that there's early exposure to language. The earlier, the better. And there's more chance to avoid language deprivation syndrome. And I don't plan on discussing that in great detail. I've just highlighted on my slide that you could check into language deprivation syndrome. And I would say, check out this Dr. Sanjay Gulati and their research to do with language deprivation syndrome. I think it's really beneficial for people to know what that actually looks like. And the point is the earlier the better. And if we can avoid something like this where it becomes harder for a child to learn information and to absorb and retain information. Okay, so now we'll get back to the 0 to 6 stage. When we look at from 0 to 4, where are they learning? They're going to learn things at home or at daycare, play groups. When they start going into pre-K, kindergarten, like ages 4, 5, and 6, and I mean, you're looking at possibly 2 years in kindergarten. So more than half of their learning is taking place from 0 to 4. So the time is now when the child needs to get exposure to language in their own home. So as soon as they're born and they're identified, I would suggest people not put off learning sign. Make sure that you're exposing them to spoken English or sign language. I mean, here this workshop is talking about deaf and hard of hearing children. So, okay. All right. So I'll get you to read the screen. All right, so this is taken from Dr. Hall and their research of the brain. So they researched brain development in deaf and hard of hearing children, and they found that if there is no access to language in the early years, that does impact on their brain development, and sometimes it can be irreversible. It's hard to go back and relearn or learn those things. So it's really, the key is that taking advantage of that window, that 0 to 6 window, to put in as much as you can in terms of information in that sponge of the brain. And that's what I encourage people to keep that in the back of their mind. So if a child has very limited or no access to language and they go into a kindergarten classroom, you have to think about what does that look like on a daily basis for that child. And I have a little cartoon, so I'll get you to take a peek at that. And if you were to look at these pictures, do you actually understand what's being said and who's saying what to whom? You know, what do you think they might be saying to each other? And you can type what you think they might be saying in the chat. So yeah, if you wanted to type in what your guesses might be.
So we can change. There you go. Okay, we'll just wait. Ah, come on, you have some answers. You gotta have some answers of what's going on here. Just type it in the chat. Yes, no, simple answer, yes or no. Yeah, no idea. Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. Yeah, that's a great answer. Yeah, if the child has no language, they have no language exposure, they're coming into kindergarten and they're not picking up any information. Hi, how are you? Is that your dad? You know, really, the answer is, oh, what else do we have? Oh, there's more. Meeting for each other for the first time, introducing the child. Maybe it could be that. It might be that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. And now we don't need any more comments at this point. So what the answer is, we just don't know. We have no idea what that child can, how much information they're receiving at this point. We'll never know. Only the child themselves will know. So the answer really is the child, the student, they're trying to take things in visually. They're looking, trying to pick up clues and cues as to what's going on. Maybe they're trying to use any hearing that they have from any aids that they have on, and just trying to figure out and move through the process. And imagine doing that all day long, 5 days a week, for 10 months of the school year. Wow, how exhausting would that be? It's not an easy job, not an easy process for that child to try to access information. What they say, what's going on over here? Where are we going? What's that? What's this all about? All that misinformation that's happening, all that missed information that's happening, and that really impacts. It's called hearing fatigue. So this webinar last month, I think we had that. We had two individuals that presented last month about the fatigue that happens from trying to listen and take information in. And just that presentation that took place last month, wow, that was very impactful to have. That's impactful to mental health. It's just so impactful to the individual that's trying to take that information in. So accessible language is a human right. It is. Yep. That little picture there, HU is the sign, is human. All children, deaf, hearing, doesn't matter, but deaf and hard of hearing, they have a right to have language. That is the end of the discussion. They have a right to have language, and they need accessible language. And we go back to thinking about the brain and thinking about taking in information visually, auditorially, or tactilely, whatever is the easiest, whatever is most comfortable for the deaf and hard of hearing child. That's the key, is the accessible language and to get meaning from what they're taking in. Okay, moving right along. Now, I want to get on to the second part. I just have a little drink of water to get going. So now we're going to talk about placement options. I guess soon, age 3, maybe age 4, best at age 3, 3.5. You're going to go start checking out different placements for your child and different options. And so I have a bit of a graph or a bit of a visual here for you. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different examples. I want to clarify all of them, that all across Canada, things are not the same in each province. So maybe some provinces have all of these options, all 6 of these options. Some provinces might only have, 4 or 3, maybe only 2 of these options. Some provinces might have, might not have a school for the deaf. Some provinces don't have that anymore. So it really varies on where you live, but I'm going to name each one of these and really give you some information about each one of them, and you can just keep them in the back of your mind for when you're going to look at schools. So on this one, on the left, the far left, is the least amount of support for the deaf and hard of hearing student. All the way to the right, we start increasing services and supports for the deaf and hard of hearing student. So that's what you will see on this continuum. And so I will touch on each one of them, and then you will know exactly which each one entails. So the first one is the one on the far left, and that's the regular classroom with indirect supports. So you will see the blue circle there, and that is representing the percentage that the child is mainstreamed in the blue. And if there's orange, that shows a specialized kind of takeout group where they might be individual or maybe in a small group. So if it's full blue circle, that's 100% mainstream that child is. They are in the classroom with a teacher. The teacher is teaching, and they may have a special education teacher, like a special education resource teacher or a teacher for the deaf that's an itinerant that will, the teacher of the deaf, TOD is the acronym, that they will come and advise the teacher on different resources that they could use with that child. They'll be able to answer any questions the teacher has, but understand that those two resources are not with the student, are not interacting really with the student. They really are there to provide support to the teacher. So it's indirect support for the student with direct support for the teacher. The next one is a regular class with resource assistance. Again, it's still mainstreamed for the full day. You might have a teacher of the deaf, an itinerant teacher for the deaf that comes and travels to the school and comes into the classroom and might work in the regular classroom meaning how to use an FM system with that child that might be hooked up with their hearing aids, to amplify things in the classroom, how to care for those hearing aids, make sure the batteries are working appropriately, if the cochlear implant is working appropriately. So they are really receiving special instructions within the regular classroom, but to also have the teacher of the deaf just coming in as an itinerant, and you might have an interpreter as well. The deaf and hard of hearing student, again, is there, probably aided with a variety of different aids. Could be FM, could be hearing aids, could be cochlear implants. The important thing at that point is then to ask, how often are these individuals coming into the classroom? Are they coming 5 to 10 times in a year to check on this student? Are they coming for how long? And when they get there, are they only coming for 30 minutes? Are they there for an hour or 2 hours? Are they there all day? Like, it varies from place to place. So these are questions you need to ask: is how often and how long when they are there. Moving right along on that continuum, we get to the regular classroom with withdrawal assistance. So that means that we'd have the itinerant teacher of the deaf that comes to the school and takes the deaf or hard of hearing child outside of the classroom and has some one-on-one time. Might be related to the aids that they're using, hearing aids, FM system, a variety of different supports that they may have. They might be coming 1 to 2 times a week. It might be less than that. It might be 1 to 2 times a month. Again, it's very important to check and ask those questions. How often is this specialized instruction coming to my child? Moving right along on that continuum, we get to the special education class with partial integration. So that means that half of the time, the child is mainstream with the regular hearing students in the classroom, and the other half of the time, they are outside of the classroom in a special classroom with deaf and hard of hearing students in a group, working with a teacher of the deaf that is working with just those children. Now, understand their ages may vary, their grade levels may vary, but they all are grouped into one group. You might have one grade 1 student, one grade 4 student, one grade 8 student, and they are pulled out together at the same time, and they're in the same group with this teacher of the deaf teaching them. Again, it's another tip I'd like to share with you and can't emphasize enough is that, is that teacher of the deaf signing using ASL? And how often are they using ASL? Are they using it the whole time they're there? Maybe they're using ASL part of the time, and the other time they are speaking English and oscillating back and forth between those two modalities. It really depends on the school and the situation that you are touring. So now moving right along on the continuum, we're good. Yeah, you're still good. Moving along, we have full-time education classroom with intense support. That means all day the deaf and hard of hearing students are in a specialized classroom, probably is a classroom in the school. All the deaf and hard of hearing students are together. Again, that will vary in age, that will vary in grade level. Same as before, the teacher of the deaf, they might, you need to ask, how often are they signing in that specialized classroom? Or are they only speaking? Is there, again, a mixture of both? Are they doing both? These are questions you need to ask while you are on that tour and having those meetings with the specialized people that are in the classroom. Now, in terms of public school resource team, for deaf and hard of hearing students, the team is support there for the deaf and hard of hearing students. We'll have audiologists, we'll have speech and language pathologists, we'll have teachers of the deaf, we'll have special education resource teacher, we'll have educational assistants, we'll have interpreters, and we will also have LASW, which is a language acquisition support worker. Or we will have an educational deaf interpreter, an EDI. So you could have a possibility of all of these, some of these. you have to understand that most members on this team, most of them might not know ASL. So those are another question you need to ask. Who can sign from this group of individuals? The last one I was talking about, the LASW, the language acquisition support worker, is generally a deaf person. Now, the very far right on that continuum is a school for the deaf. All day, it's a deaf and hard of hearing students are together. It's their own school. Deaf and hard of hearing is the student population in that school. They will be in their own classroom. They'll be grade 1, might be 4, 5, 6 students in that classroom, grade 2. So they will be in their own grade level. Some grade 2 might have 3 or 4, same idea across the board when we're talking grade levels. And sometimes they might bring grade 2 and 3 together to do different activity. And the school themselves will use the bilingual, bicultural approach in their education philosophy. They will use ASL and English. They will use ASL and English for literacy. And both will get equal amount of time in terms of teaching. So they will teach in ASL, and they will also be writing English, so for those literacy skills, so that the students can gain those literacy skills. So the students have both languages happening at the same time during this their time at the school for the deaf. The support staff at the schools for the deaf may include the list that I have up on the PowerPoint here. It's almost the same as what I showed you from the other examples on the continuum, except for the last one, I think is the one that's different. So we have the teacher psychologist, and they know how to work with the teachers. That psychologist knows how to work with deaf and hard of hearing students. They are fluent probably in ASL. We have a guidance counselor. We have a social worker. All, if not most, of these staff that I've listed here, most of them will know and use American Sign Language. Someone's typed. Oh yeah, sorry, I thought someone typed something in the chat. Okay, so, and here's the slide I'd like you to read. This is really, really a wonderful quote. You know, if a flower is not blooming, you know, we don't think, well, what's wrong with the flower, and analyze the flower and try to dissect that flower and see what's wrong with it. We look at the environment. Is it getting enough sunlight? Should we move it to a different area? Oh, it's getting too much sun. Maybe we need to move it to a shaded area. Or, you know, is the soil needing something? Is it too wet? Is it too dry? You know, there's a multitude of possibilities. Maybe it's too much water. It's drowning because it's getting so much water. So we really look at the environment when we start looking at why our plants aren't growing and why they're not blooming. You know, when you think about education for deaf and hard of hearing children, they're not developing. They're kind of stagnant. They've plateaued. Like, what's going on? And people think, well, there's something wrong with the student. And it's like, wait, look at the environment that they're in. Look at the home environment. You know, TV's on. Are they getting access? Are they getting exposure to American Sign Language? Where's that exposure happening? Are they able to interact with their friends, their family, their relatives? At school, what's the school environment looking like for that child? You know, is it something that we can change that in that environment to help them grow and develop and become the best that they can be? Same as the flower blooming, we want the same to happen for the child. That's a question. Okay, we have that. Hold on to that question till the end if you don't mind. So we've talked about you know, the different options, but you know, first we have to have an IPRC, which is an identification, placement, review committee. So we have to have a meeting. So everyone comes together. That would be the school board. Like who's involved in that meeting would be the school board, the principal, teachers, parents, the student, if they're over the age of 8. We want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of that deaf and hard of hearing child. Yep, they need special education services. What exactly do they need? We need to match the needs of that child. Do they have availability in different programs in the area? So we talk about the child's strengths, the child's needs, and then we come to a conclusion, a decision of, what this IPRC will look like. And this is something that will happen every year. And we check in to make sure that, the program is working. And if not, then we find other placement for that child so that they can grow. This is kind of what the form looks like. I've put it up there on the slide. That's what the IPRC looks like. I know it's tiny print, but there's the green area that says special classroom name, and then they put it in brackets, what school they're going to go to. And this is the back of the form and what it looks like. Okay, so we're now on to school tours. So, all the different placement options. You've had your IPR.
And we're going to switch bar.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just looking at the time and aware of where we're at with that. Okay, we're ready to go ahead. Okay. Now on to number 3 of the agenda, it's the school tours. So you've got an idea of the different types of placements, and you've done your searches, you determine what possible school options are. Is it something close by? Is it something a little bit further away? Then you would want to go and check out those schools, physically go to them. So you make sure, book as many school tours as possible. I would suggest not just seeing one, see a whole bunch of them so you can compare. You might even fly to a different province to see what options there are in a different province. It's just so important that you get as much information as possible so that you can make an informed decision. So when you're going into these tours, I have a list of questions that I would suggest you pose to the various schools. Ask the question, what is the ratio between teacher to students? So is it a 1-4 in kindergarten? Grade 1, you should be looking at a 1-6. Like in public schools, it might be a 1-20, 1-30 students, one teacher. But ask those questions. Also ask if any of their staff are fluent in sign language. Ask what languages they're going to be using for instruction. Are they going to be using English, French, LSQ, ASL? Oh, I jumped ahead. Yeah, is it just going to be presented orally, so in spoken English or in a spoken language without any sign? Would they have ASL support? So going first with spoken language, and if they don't understand, you might feed them the odd word like a color, it's red, it's green, in sign language, or is it done in ASL? Or is it a combination of both ASL and English? Another question to ask is, are there other students in the school who are deaf and hard of hearing? Ask how many, what grades are they in? Because sometimes it's really nice to know that there's other students because you can connect with other parents. There might be some sleepover arrangements. You can arrange pickup because there's lots of language opportunity. But you also want to make sure that your child is getting socialization with other children who are deaf or hard of hearing. The other question that we would ask is there going to be an itinerant teacher of the deaf working with my child? Do you have a name of the person? You might want to ask the frequency that the teacher of the deaf comes in. How long are their scheduled visits? Okay, I do have more questions. It's also important to ask what kind of services are going to be made available within that particular school that you're touring for your deaf child. Like, do they have FM systems? Do they have an audiologist that can come in and check in on the hearing aids and the cochlear implants? Is there a speech language pathologist there? Are there ASL classes? But if you go in and say, well, my child's fluent in American Sign Language, what does the school offer for my child? Do they have an ASL specialist? If they do, who is it? And we have somebody who can do language assessments to see where the student is at. Is there an educational interpreter? Is the interpreter full-time? Is there educational assistants offering support? Is that full-time? Is it part-time? Can they sign? Can they not sign? Is there a language acquisition support worker? Or is there an EDI that works in the system? If they say, well, no, but you can then ask, are you open to having and contracting with somebody to do that kind of work? It's really important that you ask those questions to see what they're willing to offer in this different school programs. And you want to see if they're open to offering ASL classes for other students, because if you might have one or just a couple of people who are deaf and hard of hearing in the school, and who are they going to communicate with? But if there's an opportunity for the other students to learn sign language, and it allows that child to then expand their friendship and peer pool. It's also important, like, what happens if there's an emergency, if there is a fire, if there's a lockdown, some kind of natural disaster, if there was a hurricane or something. Um, so yeah, I don't know, depending where you are, maybe you're in a flood zone, maybe you're in an earthquake area. I don't know, but with those natural emergencies, how do they make sure that the child is safe? Is there a strobe light? I don't know. All of a sudden, I realized I was signing off screen. So, is there a visual strobe light? If there's a lockdown and there's a lot of panic going and happening at that time, we have to make sure that there is a safety plan in place with the school. What is that safety plan? What does it look like? And is there such a thing for my deaf child? Now, I'm still talking about when you're actually in the school tour, taking a look at the actual buildings. I also suggest some of the things that you need to look out for are these things. Take a look at the school environment. Is it open? Is it visually appeasing? Is there a flashing light system if there is an alarm? Once, if there's when the bell's ringing, do they have some kind of flashing light system? What do they have for announcements that they make on with the PA system? Do they have a digital display that goes along with it? Or do they have a TV where they might have an announcement that comes across on a television? If there was an emergency or a fire alarm, once again, asking if there's a strobe light that will go off. Take a look around at the environment. Look, just look everywhere. The other thing to check out is the classrooms themselves. What does the classroom environment look like? How visual is it? Do they use pictures? Do they have the manual alphabet up on the wall? Do they have numbers in ASL up on the wall? Do they have an ASL sign with a picture with the English word below it? Are they using inclusive props in the room? Take a look around and just do a little check as to whether it's deaf friendly. Check and see how students are situated. Are they sitting in rows? Are they in a circle where they can see each other? Are they in pods? Also, take a look at the teacher when you're doing the tour and how the student is interacting with the student. Does the student get down, or does the teacher get down to the student's level? Do they really connect? And if they're meeting your child, are they trying to interact with the child? Do they sign? How are they signing? Are they friendly? Are they welcoming? What's your child's reaction? If your child is shy, what does that teacher do? Do they find a way to include your child in that moment? Also, if they're trying to get everybody's attention in the classroom, do they flash a light on and off? Like, what do they do that includes deaf and hard of hearing children and make sure that they're getting the same access to information as everyone else? Now we're looking to observe students there. I mean, are the students interested? Are they trying to encourage, or do they want to welcome this new deaf or hard of hearing person? Like, how does that person feel? Like, oh, you're deaf? Oh. And they might say, oh, my name is so and so. And what's your name? There might be some interaction. Look for those things to see if your child will feel comfortable and welcomed in. And the last one to keep an eye on is your deaf or hard of hearing child. What are they feeling? Are they nervous? Are you noticing anxiety? Are they excited? Are they happy? Are they feeling very comfortable? Are they brave? I mean, I can share my own personal experience. When I was younger, my parents didn't realize I was deaf. I mean, they didn't identify my deafness until I was 2, which is still fairly late. So I was then aided, went into an oral program, into a preschool program that was an auditory-based program. But my parents had a sense that there should be more services for me. So they kept asking around. They kept asking the SLPs. They asked deaf and hard of hearing services. And people referred them to the school for the deaf, and they wanted to have a visit. So where we went to go visit is we were in California. I'll back up. I was born in Alberta. So full disclosure here, I was born in Alberta, but my parents, they wanted to check and see what was out there. They wanted to see what the School for the Deaf in California would look like. We flew down and we did the school tour. And I was so shy. I mean, a lot of times kids are really shy. I wasn't going to do anything. I didn't know where we were going and what was going on. And the staff there, they were signing. They got down to my level. They said, "Hey, come over here. We're going to play over here." And at first I was like, "Oh," and I'm like, "I'm okay with this." I felt so comfortable. And then I was immediately involved. And my mom was shocked because I'm like, "Okay, bye, mom. See you later." And my mom was really impressed that I felt so confident in that environment, and they felt that that was the right place for me. But that was part of my journey, and I would share that with you. And I did it, attend the School for the Deaf in California, and then from there we moved to Ontario. Also, when you're going to a school tour, like just keep an eye on your child. And yeah, it can be so heartwarming when you find the right place. All right. With different experiences that what I've seen working with parents, and the top 3 concerns that parents have are these. That school is so far away. Another concern is like, how can I, as a parent, communicate with my child? Or, ooh, ASL is too hard to learn. I don't have time. Like people are busy, right? But there's a new world, and there's some people that understand that deaf component, and it can be overwhelming at first, and you're going to have these concerns. And what I'd like to do is reframe the thinking. So with the first one, when they say, "Oh, that school is really far away," but there's maybe 2 different situations that you can think of. All right, there's a public school within 5 minutes, but the student is there for 7 hours a day with very minimal involvement. They're working so hard to try and get any access to communication. Or do you go to the school that might be a half hour away? But the 7 hours where the child is actually in school, they're getting maximum exposure to information from all different ages. And they're able to understand everybody and they're able to learn much easier. So when you look at those two scenarios, what scenario benefits the child the best? Okay, the second concern, how can I communicate with my child? Let's reframe that. We can just say, well, with my deaf baby, how are they going to communicate with me? How are they going to tell me how they're feeling? American Sign Language, there's been all kinds of research that has proven that ASL is an accessible language for any baby, whether the baby's hearing or deaf. That babies can communicate, and they can communicate at 6 months and ask for milk. And you're like, oh, you want some milk? Okay. And there's instant communication that your child can let you know what they want, whether they're deaf or hearing. Now, the third concern, where people might say, well, oh, ASL is hard to learn, but ASL is a bona fide language. So it's not going to be easy to learn. Learning any language, whether you're going to learn Chinese, French. I mean, if I study French for a week, I am not going to be fluent in French. I have to use the language. I have to practice it. I have to learn it. I have to speak it. I have to be regular in using with that so I can use the language and use it with other people. And that's no different than picking up American Sign Language. It's not impossible. It's just not simple. But research has proven that in order for a parent to support their child growing up, the parent doesn't have to be absolutely fluent in ASL. But if they discover that their child is deaf and the parents are then learning alongside their child, whether it's more, baby, mom, dad, milk, they're able to pick up language together. And that is very beneficial. The key is to have continual exposure to ASL and to sign all through the day, at night, pointing out things, giving things names, not just here's a sign and then blah, 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 speaking, and then, oh, here's a sign and then blah, 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 speaking. You have to be consistent with it. And that's a key component. And the child will be fine. They will pick up American Sign Language. It won't be a problem. If some people say, oh, but I'm such a beginner with ASL. I mean, I only know 50 signs. That's okay. It's the consistency of signing that will help your child learn. All right, another quote for you. So when you decide something for your deaf or hard of hearing child, I mean, I know that they're young, but when you make that decision, I think you have to look at it from the lens of the child. We have to look at whose life it's going to make easier. Is it your child's life that becomes easier, or is it to your benefit that it's easier for you? And we look back to this. It's like, well, if the school's really close, it's easy for me, but it's not easy for the child. And it's just that when you're making the decision, I think what we have to reflect on is who is it easier for? I'm just making sure we're okay, or make sure the interpreter's fine. So I'm going on to the tips. Tips to get ready for school. I know some of you are like, what? I don't want my kid to grow up so fast. Oh my goodness, they're going to go to school like in the blink of an eye. Oh my goodness, they're going into school. I mean, all parents go through that, I'm sure. So the tips that I have to suggest are, and these are specific to parents, is learn a sign language. Start learning immediately. Not, oh, I'm going to learn later. Yeah, I'm going to learn later. But in that blink of an eye, 2 years goes by and it's like, oh, but I haven't taken a class. Start ASAP. Go on YouTube, make contacts with the deaf and hard of hearing services in your area. Check and see where you can learn ASL. Are there classes? Are there apps? There's so many apps now that have been developed that are amazing. But that would be my thing is that you would want to learn right now. Number 2 tip is connect with other families that have deaf and hard of hearing children. And what you're going to get from that is their experience. Like if you just have a new, fresh baby and you just don't know, and there's so many unknowns, you can connect a family who's already been through the trenches and they can share what their experience has been because they're the experts at this point. Number 3 is meet and mingle with deaf adults, not just children. As parents and your family, meet with other families, meet with other adults, go to community events so that you have a chance to meet with somebody like me or a deaf person so you can ask those questions. What was your experience growing up? I mean, now that you're an adult and you're doing this and you're working and what I want my child to be able to be successful. What are your accomplishments? Where are you working? You can ask deaf adults all these questions and they can give you any advice for living. Okay, with number 4, the tip is to seek out events, community events that would have activities for young children so that your child will get that socialization and maybe meet some peers. And it's really neat when kids have peers and they get to grow up together and not just have, well, they only are around older people, but to have somebody who's a similar age to them. It's a true benefit for little children. Another tip is to participate in ASL play groups if you happen to have one in your area. If you're able to find something, I would suggest that you attend those. And I would say start doing your research in your province, in your region. Check and see what's available. What kind of placements are there? What kind of specialized programs are there? What types of services are in the area? It might be, who teaches ASL. Maybe there's a deaf mentor that will work with you and your family. Maybe there could be a weekend drop-in program. There's all types of programs and services, but you do need to explore to see what's in your area. You can check out other provinces and see what they offer. You can check into the States, you can check into other countries, across the pond or whatever. You can compare and see what places are offering what programs. And the last tip I said is just get familiar with an IEP. And if you don't know what the IEP is, check and see what that individualized education plan is. There is some legal documentations where they look at what accommodations a child would need to help with their learning in the school system. Maybe the curriculum needs to be modified so that the child can succeed in school. But that IEP, that programming is really important so that people will know what to do. And it's important that people know how to work with that document.
So now we're going to discuss connecting with experts. So it's important that you look for services and people in your area that offer support to yourself, your family, and your deaf and hard of hearing child. And the supports would look like a variety of things. I'm going to list a few here. Teaching ASL, for the parents, so that they can have family connections with each other, with their deaf and hard of hearing child. Sharing with you about deaf culture. This is the tendencies of this is what happens in deaf culture. Hosting ASL play groups or other social events? Sometimes parents are going to want to meet, oh, I don't know. I don't know what the best example would be. It's not really, I'm maybe it's fishing. No, that's not a good example. What am I thinking about here? Something of a similar interest. And you can network and find, oh, this individual has that same interest in the deaf community, and you can network within the deaf community and find somebody that would be a good match to an interest that somebody has, that their child has, and maybe then they can learn through that avenue as well. And also guiding you through the admission process. What's that going to look like? How do we move forward through that? And as well to advocating for your deaf and hard of hearing child's needs. Maybe they need an interpreter, but whatever the supports are, let's say, like I said, hiring an interpreter, or you're needing a language support worker, to get that child's language moving forward, and so they can pick up language quicker. So it depends on the types of services that you're going to need, and again, connect with the experts so that you have that. Now, self-advocacy is our next topic. Self-advocacy for the deaf child, the hard of hearing child, so they can advocate for themselves. So at home, your deaf or hard of hearing child what can they do? Can they ask for help? Say, hey, I need some help over here. This is really hard to take the lid off of this. Or do they ask for help in any other situations? Are they able to express how they're feeling? Like, I'm really tired. Um, I'm not happy with school. Or can they express just, other examples I could give you, but generally, can they express how they feel? Can they ask questions? Can they, why are we doing this? Why are we going there? Why is it like this? Can they ask for help in terms of figuring out those inquisitive questions when they're asking when and where and why and how? They're asking all those questions. Are they able to do that? Are they able to take their opinion and be able to share it with you? Say, no, I don't like that. I like this instead. I don't want to do that. I want this instead. Are they able to express that? That's not an interest to me. This is better. This other option is better for me. It's important that they have their opinion and are able to share that with them, with you. And also encouraging them to explain something that might have happened in the past. This happened and I got here and then I tripped and I fell and this is how the story proceeded and this is what took place. Are they able to do that? Are they able to stand up and say, hey, like, that's not nice? If something's happening on the playground, for example, or something's happening in your home, can they say, hey, that's not right? Or that's wrong that you behaved that way or somebody behaved that way? Are they able to do that? And being able to do those things that I just listed, it really stems from having language. That's the key. It's all of this is related to language acquisition, and language supports that. And it happens at home and it happens at school. And that self-advocacy, once they leave and go to school, you want them to be able to say, hey, I can't see that very clearly. I didn't understand. I didn't understand the question. Can you say that again, please? That really went over my head. I need to figure that out. For them to be able to advocate for themselves at school is crucial. So, do you sign with your children? Or you haven't started that yet? Is that still a new concept? You're just learning some? I'm just going to throw you out a little bit of tidbits on, how important it is to sign with your child. So you can start with the alphabet, go from A to Z. Both of you at the same time can be learning the alphabet. You can be practicing back and forth with each other, copying those signs. Same thing when it comes to ASL numbers, 1 to 10. You can count if they can count from 1 to 10. Can they identify their own name? their own name sign, and can they spell, like, my name is Michelle, this is my name sign. That's my mom, that's my uncle, this is my aunt, that's my cousin, Everett, maybe, or Evelyn, or whatever the cousin's name is. Can they spell their own name? Not only know their name sign, but know how to spell their name. How about the color signs? This is black, this is green, this is red. These are important signs for them to know. Signs for feelings: happy, sad, mad, for example. Also, ASL rhymes and rhythms for babies, to be able to take it in visually. You're always clapping your hands to different things, or bear, you're signing, the handshake with the claw going bear, tiger, the same handshake, repeating that same handshake over and over and over again, using rhymes and rhythms like that, using ASL. And some vocabulary that's important, everyday vocabulary that goes back and forth between parent and child. I made a list of them here for you to see. I've got mom and dad, and more, food, it's cold, the weather. Yeah. And again, I can't stress this enough. Sign now. Sign now. It's crucial. Just don't fall into the wait and see. We'll do it later. No, today is the day. Today is the day to put your hands in the air and start signing. Other skills to teach your deaf and hard of hearing child before school. Oh, I think it's on this side, but it's actually on your side over here. So yeah, on this side, I'll point to this side. Some skills that you could teach your, you have a couple of years left. So these skills are so crucial, and the child should know before they enter school. So are they potty trained? Are they potty trained? And the other important part is, can they let you know that they need to go to the bathroom? Not only are they potty trained, but that they can say, I gotta go. Can they put a jacket on and off? Can they do it themselves? Can they do it by themselves? Can they zip it up? They get their jacket on, but can they zip it up? We want them to be able to zip it up. Same goes for their shoes and their boots. And can they get the shoes on independently? And can they tie it? Teach them how to tie their shoes prior to school. That's an important lesson. Wash their hands. Learn to wash their hands very well. Not just stick them in the water and then take off and not even dry them. Got to get that soap in there. You got to wash those hands. That's important. Eating healthy, making some very healthy food choices, not always having the sugar and the candy. They're going to have to balance that out. They got to eat this first, the healthy stuff first, then they can have the treat. They're going to school and they bring in their lunch kit. It's important to know that I need to eat this first, the apple first. I need to have this, and then I can have the cookie. Don't fill up on the cookie first and then don't eat the healthy stuff. And also to draw and to color. That skill is important to learn as well. It's important to start now at such a young age, 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter. Paper and color markers or pencil crayons, and have them color. And use some scissors, learning to cut with scissors. Just the basic motion of cutting with scissors and recognizing their name, their full name. That's me, that's my name, that M, that means that's my name. And then they can get the rest of the letters will come too. And also to learn to print their name or write their name. So those skills are really nice for the child to know before they get into school. And I can guarantee you that your child's teacher will thank you and love you so much for all of the effort you put into giving them those skills before they get to school. Okay, so a little transition timeline recap. So at age, when the child is born, take advantage of the time, start learning ASL, start signing all the time with that child so they are exposed to the sign language. At the age of 1, start getting involved in deaf and hard of hearing community events. I don't see the blue on there. I don't see the blue line connecting that. Oh, my eyes got distracted. Sorry about that. Yeah, start getting involved in community events and meet and talk with other parents. Their experiences and what they've gone through can be very beneficial for you, and get the support you need from the experts that are out there in your community. At the age of 2, now is the time to start checking out different schools and different programs and services that are available in your particular area or your province. Age 3, that's the time to start booking and attending different school tours. It's, they'll have an open house, and other schools, any time of the year, you can book an appointment to just go in. So summer, it's just, this is the open house for kindergarten registration or pre-K, and then you could go in. But you need to get into those school tours, and it's important to have that IPRC meeting as well. Age 4, you need to get ready for the fall, for that first day of school coming up. Make sure those skills are in place that we have listed. We've practiced those skills that we talked about at home, like tying the shoes, using American Sign Language, the alphabet, the numbers, all those things I listed earlier, so that they have the best experience getting into kindergarten. And then, the time will become or pre-K, and then you'll have tears as you walk them off to school. So here we are. I am done my presentation. I am at the Q&A portion. So I'm wondering if I should leave my PowerPoint up. Robin, what are you thinking? Well, maybe we'll hang on to it. I have one last video to show, and then we'll do Q&A. So if we're just going to go, here's a message from deaf children. I would like to share this with you. I'm just going to make it larger here for you to see. Can you see this video okay? Is everyone able to see it? Yes? All right, I'll back it up a little bit. Okay, so that is a message from deaf children. All right, I'm gonna close up my PowerPoint and we'll open it up to Q&A. Okay, let me check the chat here, see what's coming here. I think the first question in the chat was, so you talked about the choice of support options of learning based on their degree of hearing loss, is the question in the chat. And the answer is no. It does not matter if they can hear a lot or they're profoundly deaf. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they are using which language they're using. It's they have 100% available supports. It doesn't matter if they're aided, cochlear implant. That is not part of it. It's hearing loss. Period. Is there another question? Did you have another question?
Um, I'm so sorry. I actually asked again if I could unmute to ask the question aloud. Is it okay that I unmuted myself?
Yes, yes. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Okay. So I was the one who asked the first question about whether it matters that what amount of hearing loss the child has. Reason I'm asking is when I look at but now my son is already 4, so I've kind of gone through this process that you just talked about. I've done all the school tours, and we didn't do an IPRC, but I've done the case conference with the public school. I've gone to EC Drury to look at school for the deaf. And when I look at the would I say graph or slide that you had up that showed, from the least support to the most support, it sounds to me like you're kind of suggesting that the best fits for the child who has hearing loss will be to go to a school for the deaf, right? That's what I take it that you're saying. I don't know if I'm wrong. Did I hear you correctly? Because that's what I got from what you said, right? And that's okay. Okay, I'll wait.
Yes and no. Yes and no. It depends on the child. It depends on the child. If the child is able to speak and is using maybe a cochlear aids and they are doing well in that environment, they can self-advocate for themselves and they can use their speech that they have.
Right, right,
Doesn't always
right.
necessarily mean they need to go to a school for the deaf. That's not
Okay,
what clarify that. So that's a good question.
okay, yeah,
Uh,
because that got me a little worried. Okay.
yeah, no, 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 for sure. Keep in mind, 0 to 6 is the age that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So kindergarten, at that period of time, it's a crucial time to learn those social skills when they
Mm-hmm.
enter kindergarten and how they're interacting with
Mm-hmm.
other children, taking
Mm-hmm.
turns.
Right,
So it depends on the child, really.
right,
It depends
right,
on where they're feeling comfortable. Can they do what is required of
right.
themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Self-advocate for what their needs are in the classroom?
Yeah.
Are they able to, do they know their colors? Can they write
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
name?
Yeah, because I mean,
And
my
it's,
son does all of what you're saying. Like he can write his own name, he can read his own name, he knows all the colors, he can have back and forth full conversations with you, right? Like I mean, I tell people that if you met him and you couldn't see, maybe he was wearing a hat or something, and you couldn't see his ears, you wouldn't know that he had hearing loss because he would be talking to you just like any other typical 4-year-old. He would have conversation, he would ask you questions. If you ask him questions, he would answer you back. He's been in daycare since he was about 10 months old. And so he learned spoken language. Like we've always really kind of leaned towards spoken language. In fact, I only very recently knew that you could actually do both. Like you could actually do listening and spoken language and also learn sign language. Like I never knew that. Like when we got the diagnosis, of course, myself and my husband are typically hearing, right? So we don't have any deaf culture. We've not been in that environment. Um, and then when we got his diagnosis at birth, the way it was presented to us sounded like you either went down the route of doing spoken language or you did ASL. Like nobody kind of presented it to us that you could do the both. And then only very recently did I come across PDSB, that was the Provincial and Demonstration School branch, and I knew what services they offered, and I knew about the home visiting program. And I'm like, why didn't I know about this all this while? Like my son had already turned I found this out this year, and he was already 24 this year. I felt really sad. Like, why? I wish I knew this all this well. So now we do ASL classes. He's now has a home visiting teacher. So I trying to learn some ASL, but already he has already developed spoken language to a really good extent. And so when I was listening to your presentation, I was looking at your slide, I became a little worried. Like, am I making a wrong decision putting him in a public school that he's going to just have a hearing itinerant? It sounded like you were saying going to school of the deaf was the best option. But to be honest, I did go to EC Drury and I felt like it didn't feel like a good fit for him. But I'm happy you've clarified that, it's not necessarily a school of the deaf that is the best option. It all depends on the child. Okay.
yes. And remember, again, there's only a couple of, oh, we'll just switch interpreters. Hang on a second here.
It's really important that you just realize that that critical age, that 0 to 6, and they're only in school in kindergarten. And it's really important for kids to be able to socialize with their peers. If they're able to pick up information from their peers and they have a good foundation, if they have a very strong foundation, they do have a language and they have skills, well then they can go into whichever program fits them the best. If it's an oral program, I think what you have to look at is you have to look at your own child, and you just have to see what fits best for your child.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. I was just trying to explain there are differences, and it really does depend on the child.
Absolutely.
Like you might want to try that. If you tried it in one situation, you might, if they're in kindergarten, grade 1, 2, it gets harder and harder,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you start learning math concepts, English,
Mm-hmm.
and science, and all of the other subject areas, it could become overwhelming. But just kind of keeping on with that strong foundation that your child has. And then after that, I mean, the options are endless. And you can always reevaluate that. You
Right.
might want to go one place for into kindergarten for a couple of years, and you might think, okay, well, no, there's a lot of strengths. If they go into kindergarten at EC Jury or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
they have language, then they can go into the school system with an
Right.
interpreter. So they might
Right.
have more options. Or if you go into a
Mm-hmm.
public school, I mean, they're still young, they're still learning ASL. So if they just plunk in an interpreter, is that a good fit for them if they don't have a strong language base in American
Right.
Sign Language?
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on the child, and every child's journey is different. It's depends on the child. I'm not wanting you to think that you made a wrong decision in any way, shape, or form, because everybody is going to make a decision based on what's best for them, and to also be open if it needs to be changed, that you can change
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Absolutely.
my whole point was that language acquisition in whichever language happens in that critical period from 0 to 6.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sorry my camera is not on. I learned a little bit of science. I could have been studying along, but I'm in a very dark room and you wouldn't even see my face. But so thank you very much. Thank you. It was such a helpful presentation. Thank you.
And I'm thankful that you asked your question. That was a very good question. Okay. Okay, so my time, I'm looking at 10:30. Are there other questions that we need to address here? Okay, Samira says, can you tell me where the special ed services are? It really depends on where you live. So I couldn't really tell you if you're in BC, if you're in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, it varies where they offer the services. I suggest that you get a hold of deaf and hard of hearing services or a service agency provider or early intervention team if you happen to have one. So somebody that you're working with, start asking those questions and ask about what services are out there. Okay. Very good. Yeah. Okay, the slide recording. I'm definitely willing to share my slides. I don't have an issue with that. I will give them to Robin so she can post them, and people can take a look at the slides that I put up. All right, are there other questions? All right, there's something about muting. All right, so Sayed was saying that if a hard of hearing child also has a genetic syndrome, for example, Down syndrome, can they still attend a school for the deaf? As they may have delays in development? The answer would be yes, because the prerequisite is that they have a hearing loss. They need to have had an audiogram that shows that there is a identified hearing loss, and if they have another symptom, for sure they can attend the school for the deaf. They can learn to sign, they can learn to read and write. Absolutely, absolutely. And then Syed had another question about the slides. Okay, we've answered the slide one. Okay, information, one of them was in there. Okay, and Samira is saying, thank you for the presentation. All right, are there other questions that people have? Okay, there. I'm saying Robin's really tiny there. Hello. I want to say, Michelle, thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. I can think of a few wee ones where the parents I will share this with, and this would be helpful. And I know some other ones that are soon ready to go into kindergarten. And what you covered was really important, not just for today, but it's also a good resource that you can show parents, and we can show the recording to our Parents of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children website. And it was very inspiring to hear what your viewpoint was and what the child needs to be ready. Because when you suggest, okay, learn ASL, learn all of the languages now. Don't wait, don't have to do one or the other. Yeah, not just ASL, do all of them. That's what I want to say. I just learn all the languages. I remember when I was young, my parents, they were only, they didn't do just, a spoken language. Yes, there was a spoken language, but there was also information, access to sign. I was born in South Africa and I used African Sign Language. And then when I moved, I then started to learn bits of ASL, but my parents made sure that I was involved with the deaf community, that I had a sense of community and exposure to that language. And that really helped me with my self-esteem, my self-awareness, my self-identity. So I was ready to be involved with school at so many different levels. So I think that was a really crucial point that you made, Michelle. And yeah, like I was saying, it's really important to have that foundation. It's like building bridges. You need to make sure those foundations are there. You can't build beyond if you don't have a good foundation. So you really need to have language exposure. It doesn't matter which language you're exposing them to, but if they're able to acquire a language, then that's really important. And then maybe I can add my own personal experience. Like I know when I asked my mom, I think I would have been around 4 or so. I said, Mom, I want to learn how to play the piano. And my mom said, you can't learn the piano. Like she didn't say no. She's like, you know, maybe the answer should have been why not, right? So then she started looking around, found a piano teacher who had a deaf child, so the piano teacher could use ASL, and I was able to learn piano. I mean, you can see my background. I have a piano. I've got a keyboard behind me, and I can play piano. And it was an interest of mine, but my parent, instead of just saying, no, you can't do that, they offered that. They're like, oh, you're interested? Okay, check it out. It's like, try it out. It's never that a deaf child or a hard of hearing child cannot do these things, and they might find it frustrating. Who knows? But just say yes. Try all of those things. And more exposure is the best. And if you feel that they're struggling to express themselves, you need to do something more. You need to be able to capitalize on it. The child, like, is the child able to express themselves? Like I said, I could self-advocate asking for piano lessons. And in my slide where it's like they can't self-advocate, they can't talk about their concerns and their feelings and whatever, you need to work with some expert to say, what do we do with this? I want to make sure that my child can self-advocate. If they can't self-advocate in spoken English, or can they maybe can't self-advocate in ASL. I also wanted to add, I just thought of this right now, is that a lot of services tend to be free. The government usually supports those services prior to the child going into school. And then once they go into school, they don't qualify for those free services. So take advantage of what's out there. Do everything now. Don't wait. My whole thing is do it now. Start today. And Robin here, I found it really helpful when parents talk with other parents. I think that's really important because they can share experience and they can talk about what their experience was. My experience was this, your experience was that. They might have some ideas that maybe that parent had never thought of. And it's just really nice for them to meet other people who've been on this journey, and they can talk about their shared experience and their lived experience, and they can also support each other during this journey. Okay, I think that's it. Robin is saying, now I'm just going to look and see. The PODHH, Parents of Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Like with some slides, somebody was saying some of the slides aren't there because I didn't get these slides and I can't post those on the website right now, but you can look at the recording, and those recordings will have the PowerPoints in the recording. And you can fast forward, you can go down to, like, there's different PowerPoints within the recording. So it might not be the PowerPoint exclusively on its own. But also, to wrap up, I would like to thank you, Michelle, again for your presentation. We really appreciate listening to you. If any of the parents want to get a hold of Michelle, email the parents of deaf and hard of hearing to that email, and then we can forward that email to Michelle, and we can go over any specific information if we need to. Then moving on, I also want to thank the ASL interpreters for interpreting tonight's presentation. I appreciate the support that you offer us. I also want to thank our Zoom host for making sure they were on the ball, spotlighting whoever was coming on and putting the links on. And thank you very much. I also want to thank you, the parents who got involved and are watching this presentation tonight. I'm hoping that you feel inspired. And thank you to those professionals who joined in. Hopefully you feel that you have some information and some knowledge that you can work with. Our next webinar, we're hoping, is going to happen on June the 10th. It's a Tuesday. Once we get that firmed up, we will send out the information. Thanks again, everybody, for participating this evening at this webinar, and we shall see you next month. And good night. Oh, I'm trying to figure out what was going on. Oh, yes, now we're sharing screen. Thank you, Nana. Okay, thank you. All right, so that wraps it up. Thank you. Bye for now. Bye, everybody.